The latest from Marvel Studios is now in theaters. Does it strike twice or even once for that matter? Let's find out.
You've seen it before, haven't you?
Once more unto the bridge, dear friends.
Again and again until we're both dead.
There's only like 12 stories. They change around little details, but they're all pretty much the same.
Deja vu. Something very familiar about it.
Hello, welcome to You've Seen It Before, movie reviews connection in mind. Thunderbolts is the latest film in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, now in theaters. It is directed by Jack Schreier and features the talents of such actors as Florence Pugh, David Harbour, Julia Louis-Dreyfus, and so many others. And this focuses on a ragtag group of, shall we say, less than ideal anti-heroes who find themselves on the wrong side of CIA Director DeFontaine, and when they are forced to work together to solve a mystery of a unknown being known as Bob, the tensions mount high and snark will ensue. Now, this review will contain spoilers of Thunderbolts, as well as certain other things. I'll be doing my spoiler-free thoughts first and foremost, though, but just so you know, there will be some spoilers later on in this review. So, first things first, let's get into some spoiler-free talk as certain whether Thunderbolts is worth your time. Is it a good theater experience? Is this a return to form of the MCU? Well, I can't say this is like the return to peak MCU. I will say this is probably a step in the right direction, because after a string of fairly mediocre, generic action films that we've seen from the MCU, talking the likes of, Captain America Brave New World, Thor Love and Thunder, stuff like that. We've had a string of disappointments, and to have this movie come in, I'm afraid it's going to get overpraised for being as good as it is, because people make shows see this to be like, oh my gosh, the MCU is back, this is the best movie ever! It's like, I can't go that far. But I will say, this was a pretty enjoyable time. And this movie benefits from a few things. One, it does deal with characters that we have seen before, and some of them that we haven't seen in a while, including Ghost, who we have not seen since Ant-Man and the Wasp, which came out all the way back in 2018. And, the fallout of, John Walker, aka U.S. Agent, the former Captain America from Falcon and the Winter Soldier. So we see that. We see, Yelena, who we last saw in a limited capacity in Hawkeye, but her in conjunction with Red Guardian, who we last saw in the Black Widow movie. These are characters we haven't seen in a while, so it's nice to catch up with them. But where this movie's strength lies is in its character development. And what I mean by that is the strength of the character development lies in the vulnerability of actors, specifically between Yelena and Red Guardian, her pseudo father, as close to a father as she has at this point. And to a lesser extent, I will say we get deeper insight into John Walker as well. So there's that. Bucky Barnes is in this as well, but he just kind of he facilitates things, but we don't get as much depth as we could have. There have been other series that delve into his backstory a lot further than this, but between Yelena and Red Guardian is one strength of this movie, and the other strength is Yelena and Bob, played by Lewis Pullman, who I'm afraid, if typecasting is a thing where, someone gets, cast the same kind of role over and over again, I'm afraid name casting is going to end up being a thing for Lewis Pullman, because it's really distracting me to see this actor who had previously played a character also known as Bob in Top Gun Maverick, play another Bob in this. But you see Yelena and Bob, their interaction with each other is fantastic. I love their interactions with one another, and really, this movie is less about action and more about thematic deep dives, and really the themes of depression and your purpose in life, what how to deal with those things in your life, and the importance of friendships and family on that front. This I think, while I don't think it'll be winning any awards from any mental health professionals along the way, I will say this: the fact that it is diving this far into it, and the main conflict is focusing around these things. It's the main climax of this movie is not so much about whether who can punch who the hardest. Is a refreshing change of pace, I think, for the MCU, and what this franchise really needs, and what this movie really pulls off, I think, in my opinion. And I think anyone who has uh, dealt or been struggling to deal with depression or anything along those lines will find truths in this movie and how it approaches it. And I think this movie deals with it in a fairly grounded way, or at least as grounded as a superhero movie can be in this case. Where this movie falls short, I think, is in the banter and the non, let's say, the non-deep character interactions, because I think going into this, a lot of people are going to think that this is um the Marvel's version of Suicide Squad, and to a certain extent it's that, but it's also but I think that's selling it short. You got these different characters interacting with another who are, they themselves admit, are not great people, and the extent of their banter usually boils down to, oh well, you're a jerk. Well, hey, I'm a jerk too. You're a jerk. Hey, I'm a jerk. Oh, you're a, you suck. Well, hey, you suck more. It's like that. That gets old pretty fast, and I hate to say it, but when David Harbour's Red Guardian isn't doing his deep dive with Yelena, his I was the Soviet Union's Captain America shtick, that was already running old in the Black Widow movie, and we get more of it here, and it's not great. Unfortunately, I feel like a lot of the funnier moments were probably shown in the trailer, but uh, that's what knocks the movie down a peg, in my opinion. But overall, I would say, if you're looking for something different from the MCU, this is something that I think fits that bill, and I think you're going to have a good enough time on it. And again, I fear that people are going to overly praise it, and I'm worried about that myself with my grading on this. But considering where we've been in the MCU the last few years, this does feel like a step in the right direction towards MCU greatness. So if I was going to give Thunderbolts a letter grade, I would say this is an A minus. It definitely fulfills its purpose. It knows what it is. It comes in, it does its job, and it leaves. And I don't think people will leave disappointed, in my opinion. And if I was going to weigh the Thunderbolts in on the scale of unoriginality, I would say this weighs in at original enough. A passing grade, but nothing to be overly proud of, in my opinion. So those are my main spoiler-free thoughts on Thunderbolts. Now let's get into some spoiler talk as certain plot developments and character arcs that may seem familiar to you and where you may have seen them before. Not a whole ton to talk about here. Again, I already mentioned that people are probably going to see this movie as the Marvel's version of Suicide Squad, and that's kind of a thing, but also really not, in my as far as I'm concerned. But the main focus I want to talk about is the character of Bob, aka Sentry, aka Void, who he's got an very interesting dynamic going on. I love the look of this guy, especially when he's in Void, where he's close. It could be just a very cheap effect, to black him all up, but he's also got the silvery contact lenses or whatever that you see in the dark. His eyes flashing. That looks fantastic in my opinion, but to me, the struggle over Bob, to sway him one way or the other way, it reminded me of an early episode of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., as a matter of fact, the girl in the flower dress, the character of Chan Ho-yin, who has fire abilities, and he gets taken away by Reyna, who turns out to be a member of Hydra. And, she convinces him, oh, you could be so much more. We're going to turn you into a hero. And, then he's like, oh, man, I've got this power, so I'm great. And it's like, oh, man, what am I, who do I need these lesser people now? And that just really resonated, in the dialogue with, Bob when he's Sentry, and, Valentina basically turns him into Sentry, and then he starts to realize, like, well, hey, if I'm indestructible, you call me a god. And it's like, well, why do I need to follow your orders? And then that leads him down to the path of becoming Void. And that, very similar to how Chan Ho-yin became, Scorch, as he calls himself. And the climax of this movie, where it really kind of takes place in a, I just think they call it the mind prison, the mind prison or whatever, where all various traumas are being reenacted for people. It reminded me a lot of an episode of Stargate Atlantis entitled Doppelganger, where there's this malevolent entity that's travels from person to person and inhabits their nightmares and feeds off their nightmares. And in order to defeat it, Colonel Shepard has to travel into Dr. McKay's brain and, save him from this entity. And, it's, when they're traveling back and forth between, Rodney and Shepard's brain, there's kind of this prison where it's like, all right, well, who's really in control? Who's stronger than who in this, mind prison? And how do we defeat this malevolent entity, especially when, compare that to when Bob is, punching back and forth Void in his mind labyrinth at that point, and is defeated by to call it a cliche, the power of friendship in a way. That really brought to mind that episode for me. I'm sure there's other examples of it. Those are just the ones that came to my mind. What did you think of Thunderbolts? Did you like it? Did you not like it? What about my analysis? Do you agree, disagree? Did I miss something? Let me know in the comments down below. Thank you so much for watching. I appreciate whatever audience I can get. Be sure to look for my next movie review, which will be for Mission Impossible: The Final Reckoning, which will be out Memorial Day weekend, as well as my next TV review, which will be for Andor Season 2, which will be finishing up its run here soon. I'll be giving my full Season 2 review of that. And if you like this video or any other video on my channel, please give me a like, share, and especially subscribe. I would very much appreciate it. Again, thank you so much for watching. But just remember, there is nothing new under the sun. And yes, you have seen it before.